Hello, you guys, and welcome back to the Culture and the Cross podcast, where we talk the happenings at our church in Raleigh, North Carolina. We are a new church plant here. We talk as seen on social media, and then we have a new segment called Questions That Need Answers. And I'm Artra,
Corey.
and I'm so excited. So let's jump into the happenings.
The happenings. So this is church planner life.
Yes.
How do you deal with new guests at your church? New visitors. And one thing is, as a new church, we don't get 50 new visitors every week or something like that.
No,
Our church is not at that size yet. But we have developed a bit of a system of how we handle new guests and new visitors. One of which is trying to make sure that we're embodying the culture of being welcoming, being friendly to people. And one of the things I was talking to my pastor about this other day is being good about retaining new guests when they come and making sure that when people get plugged in or when people come for the first time, we're getting their information. We're making sure we find out who they are, where they're from, I always ask people, how'd you find out about the church? Like, that's probably one of my first questions, because I'm trying to gauge, what's working for us as far as meeting people. Is it word of mouth, somebody at the job? For us, 97% of the time, people be
Social
like,
media.
saw y'all on Instagram. I saw y'all on Facebook. I saw y'all on TikTok. Like, that's how most of our churches found
They
our
found
church
us
that
from Instagram a lot of the times.
Yeah. And that honestly seems for us to be the most effective way that we have new people come through the doors of the church is through social media.
Yeah, for sure. I know, like, when we get new visitors, I like to introduce them to just someone.
Yeah.
So I of course love to say hello and stuff, but then I like to connect them with oh, you say that you're from New York?
Yeah.
Oh, so and so is also from New York, and that kind of thing. Or, oh, you like to cook?
Yeah.
Okay, look, so and so likes to do that too. Or
Yeah.
I like doing that. That way they feel like there is some type of
at least a touch point, a connection,
just somebody,
somebody other than us too, somebody other than the pastor.
Yeah.
So I may meet somebody and say, oh, I'm from Virginia, and I'm like, oh, I'm from Virginia too. But then I start to find out, okay, what's another connection point? Because their connection can't only just be to me and Archer, it has to be to others. So Archer's really good about that, of connecting people. Even we have people who come from overseas.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, great. This person's actually from that same area or that same continent or that same country.
Yeah, we have a couple people that are.
And that finds that connection point. They say that people generally will come back to church if they have a friend there.
Yeah.
Or someone that they know, or someone that, they're like they have something in common with, because most of the time with church, this is generally the only time you see the person is at church on Sunday.
Yeah.
So they say it helps when it's good that the word is good. We're preaching the word. Worship is great.
But it's always nice to have a friend.
But it's nice to have somebody that you're like, oh, I can't wait to see. I wonder how Joe is doing. I wonder how Bill is doing. I wonder how Tom is doing.
I haven't talked to Sarah all week.
I wonder what me and Tom like the Olympics. I wonder. I'm excited to see him, to ask him about the Olympics on Sunday. I think that's a good thing, and it helps people have that connection point.
I agree.
Because as we say always, church should be a community. And if you just come and run out the door, don't know anybody, I wonder how long you'll stay in that community. Some people do, but a lot of people don't, especially if they're trying church. Just, I'm going to visit y'all and see kind of what you're about.
But for us, we've been doing this for 3 years now?
Almost.
And for some reason, I am always still shocked when we get new visitors.
Oh?
Yeah, I am. And I always wonder, when is the shock going to wear off? When am I going to just be like, oh, it's just another Sunday with new people? But every single time I'm like, oh, my gosh. Oh, my God, we got a new person.
Yeah, it's always
in the inside, I'm like, ah.
I don't think I'm quite shocked, but I'm
always
always
oh,
grateful.
my gosh.
I'm more so grateful because, we live in.
Well, I guess maybe not shocked is the word, but
Yeah, definitely super excited. I'm always excited to meet them because we live in the United States of America.
Yeah.
We live in North Carolina. We live in Raleigh,
do.
North Carolina. I just found out this Sunday, I think I knew a general area, but I was reminded this Sunday of the amount of people that live in Raleigh, North Carolina.
A lot.
So that means there's a lot of churches in Raleigh.
Mm-hmm.
I pass 15 churches on the way to our church every Sunday because one day I counted. I went one particular way and I counted. It was probably about 13 solid. I mean, at least. And I say that comfortably.
There's a lot.
I counted. It was there. It's there. The Baptist church and the Catholic church and the Presbyterian church.
There's so many.
A lot of churches. So that's
and not
just
even to count the ones that like you're probably passing by, but they're in like a hotel or a school.
Exactly. Or the ones that are in the back of the neighborhood that you don't even see.
Yeah.
That was just ones off of the main route that I took that day, that about 15-minute drive to church on Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I counted nearly 15 churches. So I said all that to say, like, I'm always grateful when people visit or people try our church because they probably passed 20 churches on the way to ours. But for that particular Sunday, God led them to the Rock Church. And I'm grateful for that because, and obviously, we believe in the kingdom of God. So we're not saying our church is better than anybody else. We're just saying I'm grateful that you came here because you really could have gone to other churches. And we have friends who are pastors of other churches that are leading great churches.
I get so excited.
Yeah, so I'm always excited when people say, oh, I'm going to try that Rock Church with that orange logo. I want to see what they're about,
Yeah,
it's
and then
exciting.
I just remember of the times where it was just me and you.
Yeah, well, it was a few. It was a faithful few. I read that scripture this morning. It says, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I will be in the midst. And there were some days.
It was 2 or 3.
Well, Lord, you said you're here. Your word says you're still here. And we worshiped and we prayed and we preached anyway.
Yeah.
And God has continued to grow his church and use us to do that. But dealing with visitors is always exciting. We always try to make sure, like I said, we get the information.
Yeah.
We try to make sure I follow up. Within 48 hours, we always follow up. And usually I'm the first one to follow up.
Yeah.
So I'll give a call. And if they don't answer, sometimes I'll send a follow-up text if I can't leave a voicemail. I have a kind of a text that I send out to our first-time guests. And sometimes people respond. Sometimes people don't. Sometimes they answer the phone and they're super like, oh, man, thanks for calling.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't and they never call me back. And sometimes they come back and then sometimes we never see them again.
And that's okay.
It is okay. We want to make sure that we do a good job.
My favorite comment is when they say, everyone here just seems so nice.
Yeah, that's always good.
Yeah.
That's always good. When they're like, man, everyone was so friendly. People were speaking. People were hugging. People were being nice. That embodies the culture of our church, to try and do our best to be friendly, man. I just think that we can do a lot by just being nice to people, just being friendly, being kind, being not weird, being approachable.
Not weird.
All of those things I think are really very, very important. So that's how we kind of manage our first time guests, and we hope to gather more with our first time visitors and guests.
Yeah, I get so excited.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Okay, now, as seen on social media, I'm back on my jingles.
Yeah, so what's, what?
I mean,
jingles.
Yes, that's a social media jingle. Okay, but if you pick up your phone, you'll see the Olympics.
Right.
Is in Paris, and it is literally taken over.
It is.
All the screens,
the
phone, the TV, like everything. And I love the Olympics.
Right.
I love the Olympics. When I was a little girl, I was like, I'm going to be an Olympic gymnast.
Wow. What if you had done that? That would have been crazy, right?
I loved it. I used to watch Dominique Dawes. That was like my thing. And then what's her name? Christy Yamaguchi.
Oh man, I remember her.
I loved watching the Olympics.
Right.
So I love watching it now. And Paris, this Olympics, they have actually added 5 new sports.
Okay.
So I was looking
I know
it
one
up.
of them.
Which one?
The breakdancing.
Yes, breakdancing.
Which is crazy. How do you judge that? How do you judge breakdancing?
I don't know. But I haven't had a chance to like
everything else, but
yeah, but really, how do you judge breakdancing?
I guess it's like gymnastics with the floor routines. It's like.
But how do you really know if they've messed up or not? Because dancing is so like.
Well, that's one.
I don't know. Okay, well, breakdancing, skateboarding, which I think is pretty cool. They have like something called sport climbing.
Okay.
Surfing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that,
Well, all those were like, well, not all. No, skateboarding. I mean, skateboarding been around. It's been competition.
But they're not calling it breakdancing. They're calling it breaking.
Why don't they just call it breakdancing?
No, why would they do that?
Why do they call it breaking?
They're calling it breaking. Breaking will make its way. Its Olympic debut.
Why don't they just call it breakdancing? We all in the world know it as breakdancing. Some Adidas tracksuit. Come on, man.
You know what it reminds me of? Those movies where they were like crumping.
Oh, yeah. You got served.
Yeah.
You got served, man. That's 2000. That's 2003, 2004.
Yeah. So what
They would
do
be
you?
That's the only one I know. Like, man, what type of dancing is it? Even then, no, that's serious. Even then, I was kind of like,
What's
"Yeah, this is
happening?"
kind of weird. No, I mean, shout out to you if you crumping it, but I was like, that's even when I was a kid, I was like, this is kind of weird, guys.
No,
Like,
I
don't
did
know.
too. I don't know why I didn't get it.
And
I
they was doing
wanted.
the jump with the
I
head
wanted to
flipping
so
around. I was like,
bad.
man, this is crazy.
I wanted to understand the crumping
Yeah,
life, but
I
I
couldn't do it.
couldn't get into
I couldn't
it.
get into it. I was like, this is crazy. So
Maybe because you and I are too orderly.
yeah, I'm not a dancer. So, you know, I remember one time I tried to I like semi-audition for like the dance team.
No, you
At our
didn't.
church. I was maybe like, I was
Wait.
like 20 though.
Okay.
I was like 19, 20.
I don't think I've heard
and
this
like
story.
one of my friends, he was on the dance. They were like dance mime team. One of my good friends was on there.
Did you have to like do the face?
I
and
never
all
got that far
Oh wow.
because I like kind of came to one practice, and I was trying to do the moves, and I was just like, yeah, guys, I don't. And I really did. My friend was doing it, and a couple of the other people my age were doing it. So I was like, oh, maybe I could do it too. But I
We're
did a
not
couple of them.
dancers.
I was like, and it was like, yeah, that's not gonna work. I didn't do that. I don't know what I did, but
I was
I
gonna say, you
remember
didn't do that, right?
I remember feeling awkward, and I remember even the leader. He was nice about it. He wasn't mean or anything like that. But I remember I could tell that look of like when you know like somebody's not good at something. I remember seeing that look on his face like. I don't know.
I can't.
He tried to, but I could feel like I saw in his face a sense of like, yeah, I don't know if this is really your thing. You should probably stick to the
It's
keyboard.
not. We're not dancers.
Right. So I was just like,
Honey,
well,
we didn't even.
right.
I mean, like we danced at our wedding, but we didn't.
No. So
That's not my thing either. I do, however, like to dance in the kitchen with the kids because like we're all offbeat and looking crazy,
guys,
and they don't know the difference.
You guys are never gonna see those videos.
Oh
But,
no.
we
But
do that all the time.
I love dancing in the kitchen with the kids because they don't realize that mommy is looking crazy.
Honestly,
and
I do it even more silly with them because I know it makes them kind of just laugh. or
yeah,
whatever.
but
That's really funny.
okay. But if you could pick a sport, what did they have Olympic preaching?
Hey, yeah. Somebody, if you know. No, what
Would you do it?
I'll preach that opening ceremony. See, here in Paris, they're trying to make a mockery of the things of God. I wouldn't know this. I was going to preach something else, but God said when I saw that opening ceremony, nah, I wouldn't be able to do it. Y'all can tell I can't hoop. That's not my style.
Okay, so like you would not make it to the
No,
Olympics
I wouldn't
as
make
like
it. I mean, I wouldn't make it out of the North
the
Raleigh
trials?
I wouldn't make it out of the North Raleigh tryouts to get to the Charlotte trials to get to the East Coast trials. Like it wouldn't happen. But no, dead serious.
Okay, but if you could
My
pick.
first choice would be breaking, breakdancing.
Okay.
No, I'm just joking. No, dead serious. I feel like track and field is probably. I feel like the track runners always look cool.
But are you fast?
No. I'm just saying. You said if I could just pick
Okay,
one,
yeah,
not if I could legitimately make one.
if
I could, I would have done it. If I could pick, it would be track and field, like 100 meters. Come on, man! Like they always cool. They run with the chains on. You know,
They actually
even the ladies
look the
got
coolest.
Yeah, they look
out of all
sleek.
of them.
They're in super, just like sprinters. They're all in shape. I'm like, yeah, if I could be a sprinter, absolutely.
Yeah.
But if it couldn't be, okay, after that, it probably have to be something like, man, that's actually a great question. I don't even know. It's so
Okay,
many
I
events.
have a
I don't like
list.
water, so I don't like to swim.
Yeah, I thought about that and I was like, oh,
I'm
but
not
my
a-
hair, like
They've
I
been
don't
in the
wanna do
pool since
that.
they was 2 years old.
Right.
Every day,
They
probably.
skin just
And they-
smell like
well, anyway.
chlorine.
Seeping out of the pores, man.
Yeah,
I would say track
no.
and field. That's probably my main option. I would say track and field. Anything else? Or maybe I saw someone lady. She was like in a shooting competition.
That's
like,
what I was gonna say.
that
The
might
air
be cool.
rifle.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I would. So track and field or air rifles. What
So
about
I
you?
was thinking air rifle,
Yeah.
and then of course gymnastics,
Yeah.
and then after that rugby.
Rugby,
The women's rugby team
I saw some clips of that,
dominated.
and I was like,
They
you sure?
dominated.
Honey, you have to like in that gym, bro.
It's
'Cause that
just
one lady looked like she could play.
Alona?
She looked like she could play for the Carolina Panthers.
oh no,
right
that
now.
she's
That
a
lady
she's a
looked
beast.
like she.
Her name is Alona. Also, she's very funny on TikTok.
Is she really?
She's hilarious.
Would have never.
She
expected that.
carries TikTok on her back.
Really.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed from that clip I saw of her. I mean, obviously she was playing rugby, so it's not a funny moment.
She's beautiful and she's funny.
Well, no, yeah, definitely beautiful. She just
And-
looked like she is like strong and powerful.
Oh, and she is
like,
also
she
that.
could legitimately play with the NFL as well.
Yeah, she is all of those things.
and funny.
And she's very
Would've never
funny.
guessed.
Yeah, You know,
I ain't researching that. I just saw that one clip.
No, I think
woman.
I first saw her on TikTok years ago.
Oh, nice. Okay. Oh, so she's been around. Well, good.
Yeah, because she was like clapping back at someone that was like, "You're fat," and she was like, "What?"
I don't think she was fat. I think that woman is strong.
She is like she's very strong
and built and ready to play women's rugby at the Olympics.
And she won. They won a gold.
Oh, they won a gold.
They demolished the team that they played against. They crushed them.
I saw the way she like stiff on one lady. I said, "Oh."
They crushed them. The ground. There was like no way. The score was just so like it was crazy.
That's crazy.
It is.
Well, that's the
all right. I could see you shooting something.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun.
But I do, however, think that if there was like a preacher Olympics, that you should at least.
I can't do that.
I could get you some water. Okay, but anyway, I want to know what you guys think, like what sports you would do, or
leave a comment.
Yeah, or you can make up one. What if it was like Olympic knitting? Ooh, how fast can you knit this?
That may be something.
That could be a thing. Olympic reading, I'd enter.
How do you judge that? That's like all of those. How do you judge it?
Maybe it's by like they give you a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And it goes by reading comprehension and how many pages you get to.
We'll see. Leave a comment.
I don't know. That sounds like some type of.
Let us know. What event are you excited to watch? What event would you do? Leave us a comment on the YouTubes.
Yes, I want to read them all.
All right, y'all. So
good word
today.
Oh, wait. I forgot we're not doing the word. We're doing.
I got you. Our next section, huh? Questions that need answers. So we're doing our new segment, y'all. Normally we do a refresh, but we've been trying something new. Yeah. Answering some questions from the culture, some questions from the world. And so our question for today is very important question. This is a really good one. I'm sure you guys will enjoy this.
Is how to strengthen my marriage and keep Christ at the center.
I love it. This is a great question. This is a question that Archer and I sometimes don't talk about often because there's a lot of conversation about it. But we figured why not add our 2 cents of wisdom to the marriage conversation. So how to strengthen
marriage?
Yeah,
we never talk about marriage stuff.
We don't spend a lot. Well, we have it in the past, but we have been more recently, having conversations about marriage. Oh, yeah. And so obviously we have conversations at home all the time, but not publicly because, we try. It's a lot of stuff out there about marriage. But so how to strengthen your marriage? Well, I'll give you a backstory. One is that we've been married for 11 years this year. May was 11 years for us. And
Yay.
Yay. She said that.
Yay.
Ooh, 11 years, boy, I tell you, it's been a long.
It honestly only feels like, it only feels like. It
has gone by kind of quick, though.
Yep.
It has gone by.
Well, they say time flies when you're having fun.
All right, she laying on thick now, boy. But no, so it's been 11 years. So I say that to just not to a pat on the back, but just to give y'all context. We're not newlyweds, but also we're not 40 years in the game. We got some ways to go. We got some things to learn. But I would like to think we're not quite brand new in the marriage game.
No,
we've gone through some life. We've lived some life. We've gone through some changes. We've had some things happen. Family, this moves, job changes, financial good and bad. Health challenges. So we've been able to live a little bit. And so I always want to start with the word, man. Okay. Like I just think that's why we're here. Always start with the word, how to strengthen our marriage. And the Bible says this in Ephesians chapter number 5. Ephesians chapter 5 in verse 21. It says, she's laughing because she's like, what? Don't read it like you read it earlier. Ephesians chapter 5 verse 21 says, and further submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. But verse 22 says, for wives, this means submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For a husband is the head of his wife, as Christ is the head of the church. He is the savior of his body, the church, as the church submits to Christ. So wives should submit to your husbands in everything, huh? Did y'all see what I did there? For husbands, this means love your wives.
Okay.
No, seriously. Verse 25
and I feel
says,
like that's the part that people leave out.
And I did that on purpose, as y'all see. I'm joking. But this is what generally happens. I'll let you say something. What generally happens is that for years, we've preached verse 22 and verse 23 heavy on the wives.
Submit, wives. You got to submit.
But I like how the passage starts, and further from his thought earlier, submit to one another
Right.
out of reverence for Christ. Then it starts with wives, submit to husbands, submit to your husbands. And then it says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ has loved the church. And I think that one of the ways we strengthen our marriages is recognizing recognizing the necessity of mutual submission.
Right.
That's the first thing I want to say is mutual submission, because recognizing first that this is a partnership.
Exactly.
That's what I want to start with. This is a partnership. We are in this together. We are equal parts in this relationship. We are a team. And I think the first way that you strengthen your marriage is you recognize that we are a team.
Right.
That it is not my job as a husband, and we can say so much about this. We only have a little bit of time. But it's not my job to be a dictator over the affairs of the life of my wife or the affairs of the household. It's not my job to be a dictator. As a husband, it's my job to be a leader. And one of the things I've said this before while preaching is that only a foolish leader, only a leader who is a fool disregards the opinions and the insights of those that he leads. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I am the leader of this household, but any major decisions, not just major decisions, but decisions, Archer, what do you think about this? How do you see this? Archer, I know you hear the Lord too. What is the Lord saying to you? I'm feeling we should do X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. But what are you sensing? What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? And then after a conversation, after a discussion, after prayer, after whatever, we come to a mutual understanding. And I may say, you may have wanted to do B, Archer. I really think A is the best way. I really think A. And I've talked to you about it. We've weighed the pros and cons. But, honey, I think option A might be better for us. And then in turn, you can either say, let's talk about it some more. Or you say, you know what? I trust your leadership. Thank you for at least asking. Or not thank you for asking, but thank you for at least considering my opinion and making us but in true essence, we're doing this together. And the reality is that any good leader, if he has to say he's the leader all the time, he ain't the leader of nothing.
Absolutely.
And so your leadership should be seen throughout your household, not just in your domineering ways.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
Well, I was going to say, I do agree. And I think that, I think you did say it already, but, yes, the husband is the leader, but he's not, a dictator.
Correct. Absolutely.
Over the home. But then also being able to strengthen your marriage is what people talk about all the time, but it's in Ephesians where it says speak openly and speak the truth in love. And a lot of times, when you're really close with someone, you do want to you speak out things, but sometimes it's not as nice or kind.
Absolutely.
And with your spouse, it's very important to not just fly off the handle and say whatever, but have honest communication. But there's always a way to say something.
Absolutely.
There's always a way to say it, because it's not always what you say, it's how it's being said.
1,000%.
You can say a lot of things, even if it's really harsh, but you have to speak it in love, not in condescension, not in anger. Say it in love and be respectful of one another.
And I think that speaks to a word that before we got married, I decided, my parents have been married going on, actually, no, they've been married 40 years now. This is my parents have been married 40 years. So at the time they had been married, 30. And I said, I'm about to get married. I should probably, ask my parents, hey, maybe I'll get there, how to be successful. You guys been married 30 some years, or 30 years at that point, almost 30. What would you say? And so I asked them separate times. I asked my mom, I said, what do you think is, what advice would you give me? I'm about to get married. And she said that, communication. She said that's so important, communication. Making sure you're sharing things with one another. But to your point of what you were just saying, I asked my dad separately, and he said a word. He said respect. Yeah. And one, we know that generally men want respect even more than they want almost love is respect for most men, you know. And one of the things that he said, respect, he said, man, people just don't respect each other. And it goes to the point of what you were just saying of how you say things to one another. I genuinely think, man, I think that we generally have to treat each other like we respect each other, man. We've had conversations with different people of like things that even we have said, spouses have said to one another. It's like, why would you say that to your husband? Like, why would you call your wife that? Like, it's so demeaning, so disrespectful.
It automatically makes me think like you have no respect.
It makes me think you don't care nothing about them. Because why would you call them that? Why would you say that to your spouse?
Knowing that it would hurt their feelings probably as well. Like, why?
Right. And we all know, listen, your spouse can make you full out emotions that you haven't had. Okay, so anybody who's been married longer than 5 minutes know your spouse.
A spouse knows how to push a button
right. Your spouse
better
can
than
rile
anybody.
up something in you that nobody else can get. No other woman can get me riled up like Archer. I don't even get mad at. Girl, I ain't mad about you, but she could say or not say something. I'm hot. You know what I mean? So everybody's married knows that feeling of your spouse can bring up emotions in you that's hard for other people to get out of you. So I understand that emotions get high. I understand. You understand that. But there has to be a level of restraint and respect to say, you may say that, and they may say, I forgive you. But some of that stuff, man, some of those words, and I don't want to get to fussing like I was. But some of those words, man, those words do hurt, and those words linger.
Yeah.
You can say something, and you say to your spouse, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. I was just so upset. And they may say, oh, I forgive you or whatever. 3 years later, they be like, I can't believe they said that to me.
Oh, it's gonna come back up.
They may or may not bring it back up, but in the back of their mind, it takes a time to be like, I can't believe they called me a.
Yeah,
and it's like it's a lack of respect, man.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when it comes to, just marriage and keeping Christ at the center, it's like, well, how do y'all talk to each other?
Yeah.
Number one. Yeah. How do you guys act with one another? Do y'all even act like y'all like each other? Yeah. Are y'all cussing each other out? Are y'all calling each other names? Yeah. Like, because I'm sure Christ would not want that.
Right.
You calling your spouse names and hollering at them and stuff like that. So let's do the first part of, do y'all even respect each other? Yeah. Are you telling each other things in love? Are you communicating well?
Right.
And I think then we can like move on.
And I think that's one of the things, and it's also good to have good examples of that, because now my parents, I will say they were married now but they first, like, before they got saved, the first 5 or 6 years of their marriage, they weren't saved.
Yeah.
They was crazy. And my mother and father both talked about they was ridiculous. I think they was abusing each other. I'll say it like that. Not to put their business out. But I mean, they talked, they was crazy. Yeah. My dad was crazy. Mom was, they was on each other. So I'm sure they would say, those first years, we've said some crazy, whatever. But I would say, as I watched them growing up, I like to say I saw a sense of respect. Not always agreeing. And sometimes getting upset.
Respect doesn't mean that I have to agree with everything you say. Not. I don't agree.
But even in the disagreement, and some things, and this is for the married couple, some things I'm not going to say that. And what you have,
I'm going to tell you how I feel, but I'm not going to say it like that.
And you have to recognize, Sue, you mentioned this earlier about pushing those buttons. You have to recognize some buttons you need to just that's not a button, because some of those buttons, they will unlock something that you can't come back from. Mm-hmm. And there are certain things for us, for example, I'll give you just an example of this. Archer and I, and because I'm not trying to portray it like we're some perfect married couple, but Archer and I, we always have to be mindful of how we talk about family issues.
Yeah.
Just family, our extended families, all of that. My parents, her parents, siblings, cousins, all that. Because we found out early in our marriage, that's a button that can turn into a 3-day thing. Because why'd you say that about my cousin? Why'd you say that about my dad?
So now we're going to be discussing this for a straight week and a half.
Right. It's a thing. What you mean you don't want to go visit my sister? So we resolve, okay, that's an area where we need to not tread lightly in terms of eggshells, but make sure we are extremely mindful and respectful of how we have that conversation. For some couples, it may be money. We know money can be a big thing in marriages. For some couples, hey, you say about that budget, that turned into a 4-day argument. Hey, we got to talk calmly, carefully, respectfully. Even
like, let's maybe not talk about this the moment we get in the house from work.
Come on, that's the wrong time to talk. Girl, you at the Target. See,
well,
that's a problem.
I mean, like, even if you have to schedule the conversation, it's fine. But like, not like you just waking up now. Listen, let me tell you.
And it's like, knowing too.
Let's not do that right now.
And it's knowing too when, especially if you have to have a hard conversation, when maybe and this is where it comes to submit to one another.
Yeah.
Because you have to know, okay, I know I'm ready to have this conversation at 10 o'clock at night because I'm wide awake. But I know at 10 o'clock at night, if she is awake, she tired. She might say something quick just because she's like ready to get the conversation over, or vice versa.
Yeah, if I want to have it at 7 a.m.
You want to get out the bed 6:30. Hey, listen, man. And I'm like, hey, man, I'm trying to decide who I am before 10 a.m. I don't even know if I want to be up right now. That's the wrong time to bring up that hard conversation. And the mutual submission is like, is submitted to one another, is to say there are some early mornings where I may have to be like, all right, let's talk about it. I'm gonna have to get up for this, even though I know I'm tired. And there are some late nights where you submit and say, you know what, I'm gonna stay up an extra 30 minutes because I know this is a conversation that's really important to you.
Yes.
But it goes back to that mutual submission to one another and recognizing that partnership. I mean, it's so much we can say about the marriage piece, man. I will say probably the last thing I say, how do you keep Christ at the center? I think that was the second part of the question.
Yeah.
I think one of the ways you do that, see, this is the thing about Christ at the center. Christ got to be at the center of you before he's at the center of your marriage.
You have to make sure that he's
in
the center of you and your spouse, not just one of you, but both of you. And
it has to be at the center of you first.
Yes.
Of you first, Archer, and me first. I love Jesus, and I hope you, if you're watching this, because not to make it about me, you have to love Jesus and be a follower of Christ with or without your spouse. If Archer decides, God forbid, or vice versa, if I decide,
I'm out.
Hey, I'm out of it. I don't do this Christ thing no more. Archer might have to be like, well, I love you. I mean, I'm gonna be with you because and I say I want to stay. You gonna be with me, but that don't mean your commitment to Christ now turns away. And so Christ has to always, we have to always allow Christ to be doing a work in me before he can do any type of work in our marriage. No, do a work in me. I remember one time it was a pastor. He's talked about this, but I don't need to name his name. He talked about how he had an affair. Okay. This was way back, and as a result, his wife had an affair too. Kind of like he had an affair, and his wife kind of like angry, upset, whatever, had an affair with someone else. And he said they both were separated for quite a while, maybe like a few months or whatever the case would be.
Oh, wow.
And he said, he talked about this. He said what began to happen though, before they got back together, he said he didn't know until they got back together. The whole time they were separated, they both were continuing to seek God while they were separated. And, obviously kind of repentant, God, what I do, I done messed up, and her vice versa, same thing. I done, cheated on my spouse. And he said he didn't know, but they both, her and him, were both seeking God. And God, as God did the work in them, he turned their hearts back to each other.
Oh, wow.
And sure enough, they're still married today, 20-something years, whatever. Yeah. I've seen him have conversations about it and all. But it was that's what it made me think of, that as we seek him, even when I'm right, if I'm wrong, allow him to turn the heart to say, all right, after I deal with you now, remember what you said to Archer the other day, or remember what you said to your spouse, or remember that thing y'all working through. Yeah. You actually are wrong about this. You need to apologize. Or vice versa. You actually need to just keep praying for her while I deal with her. Whatever the case may be. Keep seeking him, and he turns the hearts. And that's how he stays at the center. But it has to be an inside job, man. It has to be an inside job first in yourself, because that's where it starts. What would you say about that?
I think I saw a scripture about that.
That was a what?
No, I actually saw a scripture about that.
Okay.
I was going to read it. But we already know. It was Matthew 6:33 about, seeking first his kingdom first for yourself. But I agree. You do have to know Christ for yourself. Because if you're trying to have a Christ-centered marriage, but you don't know him, you're not going to know what to do. Right. You're not going to know what to say. Yeah. You're not going to know how to feel. You could just say or do anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, too, and then there may be somebody who's watching this that may be saying, well, what about me, Corey and Archer? Like, my spouse is not saved. My spouse don't go to church. My spouse don't want nothing to do with God. And I
pray.
Listen, pray. But go ahead. Yeah. No,
so, when you are a believer, you are saved and your spouse is not, honestly, pray, because you are the first example that they see of Christ. You are the one that they are saying, that they see, like, do I want to be a Christian? Like, look at what you're doing, da 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 da. And I do believe that with prayer and them seeing that how you act and how you truly believe God and how you stand flat-footed on his word, could help them come to Christ. I know from personal example of my parents, my mom was saved and she prayed and prayed until my dad finally gave his life to Christ. I believe like 6 or 7 years later. I mean, right. after she got saved, but that takes staying at the feet of Jesus and praying and staying flat-footed in what you believe and staying centered and grounded in Christ with that.
Absolutely. And then continuing to apply all those other things that we talked about. It's still respect.
Yeah, it is still, because that's still your spouse.
Right. It's still respect. It's so, and if you throw Christ in their face or throw the Bible in their face, in an angry way, it's gonna push them away. I mean, that's really anybody. Yeah. Friend, relationship, spouse. If you just beat them over the head with the scripture, I mean, some people will get saved from that because some people need a hard word.
But some may not.
But there are many that will be like, you know what, I think I'm good on that because your life looks like a complete judgmental, know, I mean, no grace, no love. And so not to say that's your story, but I would say those other things we talked about, still respect and restraint are still very important because it's still a marriage at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So, those are just our thoughts on the marriage conversation. On how to strengthen your marriage.
We don't have many of
how
these.
To keep Christ at the center. Which makes I'm sure we'll talk about this more because we are married. So yeah. Other than that, man, we hope to see y'all this Sunday, Rock Church at 10 a.m. If you're in Raleigh, North Carolina, join us at 240 Newton Road. We're there for 5 more months.
5 more months.
We're moving to our new building at the end of this year.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. So one of these days I'm going to come up here on the podcast, and here soon I'm going to have new keys because we are moving. So join us this Sunday if you're in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we'll get back with y'all next week.
Yep. See you Sunday.
Peace.